President Trump is no stranger to self-aggrandizement, but that over-the-top self-promotion has recently hit new heights. According to The Atlantic, based on two sources, a Trump confidant has reportedly told the publication, quote, he's been talking recently about how he is the most powerful person to ever live. He wants to be remembered as the one who did things that other people couldn't do because of his sheer power and force of will. And Trump is certainly not being subtle about it. This week, a 15-foot gold statue of Trump, dubbed Don Colossus, was installed at his Miami golf course. And in July, the State Department is reportedly finalizing a plan to include Trump's photo in U.S. passports to celebrate America's 250th anniversary. Last night, in a Truth Social posting spree, Trump posted a photo of himself alongside the faces on Mount Rushmore. Nikki McCann Ramirez and Paul Butler are back with us. So, Nikki, there's narcissism, and then there's narcissism, gold-plated narcissism.
Then there's authoritarianism.
Yeah, yes. Part of me kind of wonders if some of this is about, like, his insecurity about whether America would create these kind of memorials to him after he is gone. Like, he wants to see the stuff built now because maybe he's a little bit worried about his legacy, but maybe I'm
No, you're completely correct. So,
projecting, yeah.
I actually wrote about this today for Rolling Stone, but if you think about the manner in which presidential memorials exist in D.C., they are usually very intentionally built to reflect the public legacy of that president. FDR has a wheelchair-accessible memorial that represents his 4 terms, the chaos of the wars. Washington is very austere. It's very simple. It's supposed to represent American might without being too ornate. Lincoln is set up to be in direct dialogue with the Lee Mansion across the river because of the Civil War. None of these presidents pick these memorials for themselves. There was a time period after they left office, potentially even after they died, in which the national memory kind of coalesced and gelled, and people said this person is significant enough that they deserve a giant structure so that everyone knows what they did. To an extent, Trump is building the perfect memorials to himself. The arch, this giant statue, the ballroom, they are soulless, empty, overly ornate constructions that represent a man who is so insecure about how he is going to be remembered that he feels he needs to physically impose himself on the landscape, a landscape that was very intentionally created by the designers of Washington to reflect democratic values. The White House is the White House. Small d democratic values. But the White House is the White House, not the presidential palace. Congress is huge and on the giant hill next to the Potomac because it's supposed to represent the most important branch of government that the founders envisioned. Trump doesn't get that. It doesn't click for him.
Well, does he get how it ended for Caesar, Napoleon?
No.
You're assuming he's a fan of history.
Yeah.
Well, that is actually why I think that for once it is the tell on Trump.
Right.
You know, he is this ahistorical figure who is coming in with a wrecking ball and he's destroying the post-war norms that have governed the world and have led to America's greatest prosperity. And so he is taking a wrecking ball and also having a potential military catastrophe in the form of Iran. So I don't know. I do think in some sense he is an ahistorical figure that is outside of the scope and realm of a normal president who is constrained by American rule of law.
He's an abnormal figure in a liberal democracy. So, Eamon, I think your comment about authoritarianism is exactly right. I live in the District of Columbia. It's unrecognizable. The White House looks like a construction site. You can walk around government buildings and see huge pictures of Donald Trump, including on the Justice Department. My old office building was there, and National Guards troops are patrolling the streets of D.C. with guns. This is all at the president's behest.
So I was going to say something a little bit different, and not to take away from what you guys were discussing about why Donald Trump is doing this, but I think he is in some ways, because I do believe he's an authoritarian at heart, that he is laying the groundwork for an attempt to usurp power. And one of the ways you do that is you fuse the state with the person so that it becomes indistinguishable, that you no longer have state institutions. They are Trump institutions. You no longer have memorials for previous presidents because everything Trump does is greater than anything any individual has done in the state before. Let me play for you a stop mesh of people talking about Trump extending beyond a second term. Listen.
We're up and everywhere, but I'm not running, Peter, unless you say I can.
He's going to get a third term. So Trump 28. Trump is going to be president in 28, and people just ought to get accommodated with that.
Trump 2028. I hope this never ends.
So the thing is, I know people can say that they're joking about this, right? People like Lindsey Graham. But what worries me the most is this is a bit of a distraction for an attempt to try and usurp the Constitution in 2028 and try to stay on for a third term. I don't know what you're thinking.
No, I don't discount that at all. I think it's a very serious threat. And what scares me is that the check I see to that threat isn't necessarily American institutions,
right,
places like the Supreme Court. The thing that is giving me a little reassurance right now is that he's pissed off so much of his base that initially supported him into a second term with the war in Iran, the Epstein files, the economic turmoil, that I do think that if he attempted to run a third time, you would see a faction of that original MAGA base turn against him. People like Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, who still hold a lot of sway. That doesn't fully reassure me, though, because the reality is that our institutions should be strong enough that if a president said, hey, never mind the Constitution, I'm running again, everyone would rally to stop it, and that's not happening. Yeah.
I mean, if they're not stopping the pictures on the building,
exactly,
they might not stop the Constitution.
Well, but I do wonder how, I mean, I don't know if there's great polling on this, but I do wonder how his base views this effort to brand everything with his face, with his name, which they're into the merch. I get that, or they have been into the merch and the red hats and everything like that. But in light of the foreign adventurism and in light of, not delivering on all of the promises or really any of the promises that he made to the American people, I wonder if people are kind of tiring of seeing his face everywhere.
Into the weeds of this, but if you look at American democracy and the way the people who voted for Donald Trump are, I suspect that you will have 30%, and perhaps the truest thing Donald Trump ever said was that he could stand on Fifth Avenue, shoot somebody, and his supporters will still support him. And that has always stayed in my head as the truth about MAGA supporters, the hardcore ones. So I do think that there's probably an element of MAGA supporters who want to see Trump run for a third term, and the fracturing of the rest of the body politic is where Donald Trump thrives. And that's how he, if you remember, kind of won in the Republican primary. I think it was 16 candidates. And he never went above 20%, 30%. But all the others were so fractured and they could never coalesce around one candidate that it ultimately allowed Donald Trump to make his way through into the Republican Party. And that's where we are. And so I fear that something like that could happen again in 2028. If he does decide to run, a few people will say, no, we're against this. But you'll still have a third of the Republican Party who are we're with you, ride or die till the very end. So
can I just say,
please,
it's unconstitutional.
I know.
But he could do something cutesy, say, okay, Don Jr. or J.D. Vance is going to be running, wink, wink, but I'll be president. And then the check would be the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And this is not a week when I'm feeling
well, Jared Kushner, some people have joked that Jared Kushner is the de facto president right now.
Don't put that into the universe.
I know, right? Running around as seeing classified information, doesn't have
$5 trillion deals.
Doesn't even trust Don Jr. with the Apprentice 2 franchise. So I do think Jared Kushner might be in better footing.
All right, Nikki McCann Ramirez, Paul Butler, it's great to see you. Thank you to the both of you.